See, it works perfect. Welcome to Boston Fashion Week, GlamSlam. This is one of my favorite events of the whole week, where it's kind of a behind-the-scenes storytelling. I'm Krista Haggerty. I'm president of Dependable Cleaners and one of the sponsors of a few of the events. And I get the honor of introducing Jay Calvert. And Jay, I've got to know over a number of years. And there's his official bio. You know, he's the director of community relations and instructor at School of Fashion Design. He also is instructor at the Museum of Fine Arts. He's written books. He's been on TV shows. He's run TV shows. He's published magazines. He's traveled all around the world looking at fashion and fabrics and textiles. But the words that come to mind when I think of Jay are a little bit more down to earth. I think of nurturing and caring. I've watched him with elementary school children, teaching them creativity and learning to use their artistic minds, develop it, create a project, and just puts his heart and soul into it. And I've seen that for people who want to get involved with fashion, whether they're 5 or whether they're 80, it seems. And I love that about him. I think he has this duality of excitement and patience. I think he has incredible patience, but he's always excited. You know, he's willing to open his mind up and his heart up to whatever is going to come, because I know when he starts the week, he thinks he knows what's going to come, but there's always some surprise. And he opens himself up to that his students can eventually become mentors, and he learns from them, and he loves that. And I love that about him. And most of all, he's a visionary. 25 years ago, he founded Boston Fashion Week. And today, you know, he's done this through ups and downs in the economy, huge changes in fashion and retail, etc. And I just applaud him for being the visionary, the kind, nurturing, wonderful person he is. Check.
I just want to take a minute. I'm actually going to be one of your storytellers. This is the first time I'm telling a story during GlamSlam. Very nervous. So bear with me later. But I just wanted to thank you for coming out to GlamSlam. As Krista said, this is also one of my favorite events because, you know, fashion gets kind of a bad rep sometimes in terms of being very superficial. And when you work in it, you realize not only does it take incredible talent and training to do beautiful things and to make beautiful objects, but also fashion has incredible power to change people's lives, both for the creators as well as the people who actually wear the clothes. It can be very empowering, and a lot of these stories we've heard over the years during GlamSlam really prove that. And I have to say, it was actually Terry Mann who said, you know, let's do this. You know, she thought of the idea, and we have run with it ever since. So, Terry, thank you. It's such a, you know, it's a simple concept, but it has such power, and I hope you see that tonight. And I'm going to stop talking now so I can kind of get ready for my little talk. But I want to bring up Bethany Van Delft, who is going to be our host for the evening. And just a couple things. Bethany has been with longer than 25 years because, yes, with moi.
Oh, yeah.
In my first fashion show here in Boston, Bethany modeled, and she has gone on to become an award-winning comedian as well, and she does the mock stories here, right this month. So I'm going to give it up to Bethany.
Thank you. A couple things, couple comments on what Jay said. I sort of modeled. I didn't really, right? You believed in me a lot, but what I did is I would come and tell everybody in the room what happened on Saturday Night Live last week. Like, that's what I did while people were trying to put lashes on models and draw lips on. So thank you for tolerating that all the way through. Oh my God, this is so exciting. And he did my job for me, explaining what you're going to see tonight. So a couple things. Please turn your phones off. And I know that's going to be really hard because you want to take pictures and stuff, but could you turn the sound all the way down? Because nothing throws a storyteller off more than do-do-do-do-do. You know what I mean? Okay, cool. just put it on vibrate or something. And pictures, pictures? Yeah, take pictures and post them hashtag BOSFW19, right? Okay, cool. And let's see. I love this event because of all the things Jay said. You know, I was a model for a long time, and I felt like I was the lowest in the totem pole of fashion, you know, because all we do is wear the clothes. And people outside of the fashion industry, I believe, felt that it was superficial, like Jay said. But being in the industry and seeing the creatives that all the people were fashion designers, stylists, makeup and hair artists, shoe designers, everybody, I knew that we're all just people doing things that we're passionate about. And if only the people out there who think their job is very, very important and more important than ours could hear the things that we have sacrificed to do what we're doing, the belief you have to have in yourself when the world is telling you we don't really need you. So I always told people about it. I always explained what an exciting, human, connected industry it is. And so GlamSlam is just absolutely makes my heart sing with joy that all the people tonight in the fashion industry get to share their stories with you. Who is in the fashion industry? Clap if you're in the fashion industry. You can clap loud. We can make noise. Very nice. And clap if you're not in the fashion industry. Wonderful. I'm happy to see you if you're in the industry, but I'm even happier to see you if you're not, because I really think these stories are for you, and you can go back and tell your busy computer programmer friends that what we do is important. Aside from that, let's see. We have so we're celebrating 25 years. This is the 25th year of Boston Fashion Week, and like Jay said, I've been a friend of his for longer than that, and I remember Jay and a small group of designers and models and creatives saying, why can't we have a Boston Fashion Week? And starting it just one show, and the next year it was a few shows, and more people got on board, and photographers got interested, and models were clamoring to be part of it. And I'm so proud of you, Jay. I'm gonna start crying, but I won't do it on stage. I'm so proud that this is here, and it's still, you know, it's kicking. I think this is its star rising. It's going to take off and get better and better. So thank you for being part of it. Thank you for being here tonight and supporting it. And if you're not coming up to tell a story tonight, we still want you to be part of the evening. So in celebration of the 25th anniversary, we're asking each and every one of you a question. The question is, what was your look 25 years ago? And made sure we wrote it Luke. So we're au courant. Yeah, so fill out the slip. I'm going to read them anonymously unless you write your name and you want me to say it, then I will. But here's an example. What was your look 25 years ago? This person said a velvet form-fitted long-sleeve mini black dress. Right? And this is my look 25 years ago. This is updated 2019, my look from 25 years ago, which was a low-budget Denise Huxtable. I shopped at thrift stores in the sale bin of thrift stores, and then I'd bring gigantic, baggy men's suit coats home, and I would cut suspenders and sew them together to create lines. And my roommate at the time was fashion designer Nong Tumsudapong. I don't know if any of you remember her. Fantastic. My best friend dressed me many, 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 many nights. And if you were at the party last night, I wore a 25-year throwback gown of hers. But she would see this stuff I would bring home, and she'd go, that doesn't fit. That's hideous. And then she'd take in her room for like 3 hours and come back with an asymmetrical, buttons up here, amazing outfit. This is not a Nong, but it reminds me of Nong. And this is from a small fashion boutique in South Dorchester, right near the border of Milton, called Archangel Boutique. So support local fashion. All right, we ready to get this thing started? Nice. Clap. Big, huge waves of love and applause for every teller I bring up on stage, because these people, they are top of their industry, but maybe don't always tell a story up here to you all and all of Com Ave out there driving by. So show support and give everybody your huge applause, if that's okay. Let's try it one time just to see if we got that. Yes, just like that. Our first storyteller of the evening is my dear, 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 dear friend, instructor at School of Fashion Design and the founder of Boston Fashion Week. Please welcome Jay Calderon.
So, my story is about sweet. So I'm going to ask you to think a minute and think about what that conjures up for you. If I say the word sweet, what do you think of? The only person in the room who knows this story. For me, sweet, doesn't conjure up images of sugar and candy. For me, my association with the word sweet is actually a person. It was her name, and Ms. Sweet. And just to be clear, it wasn't Miss Sweet, it wasn't Mrs. Sweet, it was Ms. Sweet. Ms. Sweet was my fashion illustration teacher when I was at the High School of Fashion Industries in New York City. And she was a force. She was just a really powerful person to meet when you're a teenager. And I had her every morning for a 2-hour class. And the thing about her was that, she was so tough. I think the administration thought that her class was kind of a transition into the real world. If you could pass her class, you could make it out there. So we all knew that, and we were ready. By the time I got to senior year, I was ready. I thought teachers liked me. I was often teacher's helper kind of thing. My charms fell flat on Ms. Sweet. She was immune to any charms I had developed as a student, as that A student. She would, if I tried anything, she would just kind of raise an eyebrow and go, "Really? Like, are you trying that with me?" It just could not get anything past her. So she was very, very tough. But she has such an incredible presence when she walked into a room. She was all this power in someone who was barely 5 foot tall. Beautiful dark skin, hair cropped really short, big silver hoop earrings. She'd walk into class like she was entering an event. And, she wore all these beautiful textiles, draped clothing, very drapey clothes, beautiful colors. But the pièce de résistance was her footwear. She had these signature shoes. They were cowboy toe mules. So they were mules, but they were cowboy toe in turquoise with at least a 3 to 4 inch stacked heel. These were I have never ever seen anything else like them. But they were her signature, and they were that little pop of color, and you just knew she was coming. So she taught me a lot, obviously, and not only did you had to earn her respect in class, but you wanted to be worthy of her respect in class. Like she just brought that out in you, when you were in her classroom. So obviously, my memories of her are incredibly vivid, both visual and sort of emotional, and that's why I'm kind of a little upset, or I've been a little upset about when I think about her for the past few years, because I started to, a few years ago, I started to think, I want to reach out to her. I want to let her know that I've become a teacher. I want to let her know that I remember her. And I started to look online, and I couldn't find any information about her. And then I went to school. I went to the high school and asked questions, wanted to find out what happened to her, because it'd been a long time. And no one seems to remember her. No one. So, I was starting to worry that my high school yearbook was all that would be left of her, the only proof that she was around. And then, of course, all sorts of other emotions started to hit. I was sad because I thought that wasn't right, and then I started to feel guilty because I said to myself, well, you did not keep in touch, right? You should have done a better job of that. But then I realized that there was another part, a more selfish part to my feelings around Miss Sweet. And because, this idea of her fading away, this incredible person fading away into history. And I got scared. I realized that I was scared because I said to myself, someone like that, who I just idolized, I just thought she was so powerful, she was starting to fade away and it's like, and disappear. And I was like, what about me? You feel like, wow, that can happen to anyone. So that's, the idea of kind of disappearing. And as you get older, you feel that more and more. You kind of feel like, wow, what's my legacy? And, will I be remembered? And all those kinds of things. And so I wanted to take this opportunity to tell you about Miss Sweet, because I feel like now, I was very lucky. I got to know her. But now she's also your Ms. Sweet. So she's a story that I hope you might share with someone. I know I always talk about her in my classroom. And then remember also that how I feel about it, which is Ms. Sweet is, I'm asking you to remember Ms. Sweet because I'm just a footnote in her story. So, and that's my story. Thank you.
Jay Calderon. We will remember Miss Sweet now. How should we spell it? Like sweet? Yep. Sweet, okay. So when you tag your photos for Boston Fashion Week, also hashtag Miss Sweet, okay? Ms. I don't listen. Imagine what that was like 25 years ago. So we have a few slips from the audience I would like to share with you. The question is, please share with us in 140 characters or less, what was your look 25 years ago? And this person says, Indy Jones fedora with a Southwest mountain man style. Hot. Yeah, no? A little. Yeah, I think so. What was your look 25 years ago? Diapers. You're so young. No, it's good to be young. And you will return from whence you came, so. What was your look 25 years ago? This person says 1994, management consulting and training dress code. Hose, skirt, dress, big round glasses. Which is also the hot teacher look of the 80s, right? Okay, also hot. All fashion is hot. Our next storyteller for the evening is absolutely an icon and an idol of mine. She's the host of Yolanda's Style and Glamour. Please welcome Yolanda Cellucci.
Thank you so much, Bethany. Well, let me start out. What was my look 25 years ago? 25 years ago, it was Bob Mackie, Danny Foshay, David Joseph, but exciting fashion designers. We did fashion shows week after week. We had a fantastic salon, of a beauty salon, a fashion salon, a health salon, all under one roof. And women came from everywhere to buy the most outrageous, the most outstanding clothes they could find. How did I get there? I started out many years ago, about 62 years ago, when I first got married. I started selling wigs out of the trunk of my car and found out that wigs were not enough, that you needed hair and makeup to complement and clothing to make this total new person. It just accelerated But it was hard on my two daughters. I had a beautiful daughter, Linda, an amazing daughter, Sandra. And when I drive them to school in the morning in my coat that was all sparkly and my boots that were all shiny, they were embarrassed. And it was raining, and they'd say, leave me off around the corner. And I'd say, but it's raining. And they'd say, I know, we just don't want anyone to see you. So when I had to go to school nights, I would borrow the trench coat from one of my employees to wear so that when I went to the school night, to school meetings, that I looked like all the other mothers. I could not look different. The worst part was all picking them up at the end of the day at school. I was always late because I had an appointment with someone for a wig. And I'd look at my watch and I'd say, oh my gosh, I got to pick up the girls. And I'd drive 90 miles an hour to get to the school. And when I got to the school, it was the nuns were there. My two daughters were hugging each other, shivering. And one would say to the other, you think she forgot us? And she said, oh, she couldn't have. And I'd drive up and say, sorry, girls, I forgot you. I had an appointment. So the older one said, could you do me a favor? Next time you come in the morning in a blonde wig, could you pick us up in the same wig? Because we keep running to someone with blonde, and now you have red hair today. Of course, it became a real problem because the nuns started to think I was a woman of the night. Because I was driving them to school decked out like this because I had an appointment, and I had to look my best. And of course, the nuns called me aside and said, your daughter told me one day that she could hear the tinkling of glass at night you were drinking. And I said, right, and I still like it. She said, like what? I said, milk. I always have a glass of milk with ice at night. Bethany and many of my friends are trying that, and they're finding out it's pretty nice. Cold glass of milk at night. But we got to be real friends. We ended up doing a show for the nuns. We had a party, and they accepted me real well. We started doing fashion shows at the school, and the girls got used to me, except some days when we'd stop at McDonald's, they'd say, let us go in and get the order. You stay in the car. But truthfully, they were pretty proud of me. Linda turned out to be a fantastic model here in Boston. She worked really well with all the fine stores, and I'm still friendly with all of those people. She really was an incredible young lady. But growing up, it did bother her that I would sprinkle sequins on her cereal sometimes. But no, truthfully, it's been an exciting career. For me to get noticed, to get started, was very difficult. For any of you starting a business, try anything that you really feel right about. Don't listen to people saying you can't do it, it's not going to work. I know when I put a beauty salon, fashion salon, and health salon all under one roof, they said it's not going to work. Well, guess what? It worked for 50 years until we finally closed. So follow your dreams. Jay and the school is so fantastic. There's so many people here that can guide you in the success of your life. I've had a great life. 62 years married and 2 beautiful daughters. Who could ask for more? Thank you.
Yolanda Cellucci. Let's check in with you all, see what you're thinking about. What was your look 25 years ago? This person says a suit from Pierre Cardin. I still own one. Ooh, I'd like to see that. Do some of you not know who Pierre Cardin is? Is that the case? Is that the person who was in diapers 25 years ago? Okay. What was your look 25 years ago? School uniform at boarding school. Well, you're all so young, aren't you? No, that's good. Outside of boarding school, maybe. And this last one for now. What was your look 25 years ago? That was the year I declared I only wear cream colors. Meow, Diane Keaton's here. Our next storyteller is luxury fashion stylist. Please welcome Alicia Daniels.
Thanks. Good evening. God, I feel, so I had this vision that we were all going to be, just in this chatty, catty, Kathy panel, but I feel like, oh my God, I have to channel my inner Mrs. Maisel and tell a few jokes. So, in telling stories, I have lots and lots of stories because I'm old and I've been in this business for 30 years. But I was thinking on the way here, I didn't prepare anything, I'm sorry. I kind of, these things come to me. What is the most profound thing that has changed me as a human being in my career? And I've done everything in this business because I'm a firm believer in, you just constantly in life just have to reinvent yourself all the time. Something works for a while, and if it doesn't continue to work, then you bring in something else. But I love fashion. I always have. It was never something I had to learn. It was just always part of my life. But I've done everything from design to product development to wholesale, retail, a 2-year stint on QVC selling dresses. I've done it all. But honestly, 13 years ago, my life completely changed when I was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer. And I was working really hard at that time. All I cared about was just, making money, being successful, doing this, doing that, being the best at this, being the best at that. And then suddenly, every Wednesday for 8 months, I sat in the infusion room at Dana-Farber, and living was the most important job I had, and that's all I really cared about. But I will tell you, I went to chemo every Wednesday at 4 o'clock looking not much different than I do right now. And because it's just who I am. But I would see women sitting in that room, and it didn't, young women, much younger. I was 40 years old when I was diagnosed, and women much, much younger than I was, in sweatpants, and they didn't, just really, really down on themselves and not caring and not even trying, almost having the feeling like, I'm going to die, why should I even bother? And I couldn't get past it. And I talked to all of these women, and it changed my life, and it changed the course of what I do in my life. Right after that, a friend of mine and I, Kelly Todd-Hill, we wrote a book about surviving breast cancer with style. It still, to this day, is on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, and it has helped thousands and thousands and thousands of women. And it's not, thank you. It's not, it's a light read, believe me. And it's by no means a medical journal, but it teaches you how to wear your scarf when your hair falls out, and how to do your eyebrows, and how to really look good to feel good. Because in life, we have to look good to feel good. And it doesn't matter if you're in the fashion business or not. It's just when you get up and you really feel good about how you look that day, you're better with your clients, you're better with your colleagues, you're just a better, happier person. And it's really not a fluff job. It's just true life. So I basically work with private clients, and I really just help my clients bring out their inner beauty and the best of themselves. And it is so rewarding. I love it so much, and I wouldn't change a thing. And if I leave you all with one little iota, is in whatever you do, help other people feel good about themselves. It takes nothing. And it is so incredibly rewarding in life in general. So thanks for the time, and thanks for showing up.
Alicia Daniels. That's really easy. That's an easy takeaway, isn't it? Help people feel good about themselves. All right, hashtag that too. Hashtag feel good about yourself. Do you know what hashtags are? Do you guys know? It's like a pound sign with like an inspirational quote after it. Do you know? Okay, some of you know. All right, let's see. What was your look 25 years ago? I had a pair of handmade, hand-tooled cowboy boots that I wore with a swinging little skirt and a vintage jacket. My hair was crazy wild, and there was some dangly jewelry. I thought it was hip, but I probably just looked like weird girl. My goodness, not true. That's like so Cyndi Lauper. Like you were Cyndi Lauper before Cyndi Lauper, right? What was your look 25 years ago? Leggings, parentheses, what's old is new again, end parentheses, Chuck Taylor high tops, cobalt blue Dr. Martens, right? It's back. When you see like a 14-year-old girl wearing that outfit, Don't you feel like I wore that? No? You're not weird, probably. I'm weird. I want to go up to them and go, I wore that exact same thing. And then I'll probably get dragged off by God knows who. What was your look 25 years ago? I was 25 and worked as a travel agent. I mostly wore skirts and dresses. I wore a lot of jewelry. My hair was medium length, and it still is now. I always wore heels! ! Ooh. I just heard that, I see lots of wedges. I see heels, lots of wedges, comfy shoes. I want to do it. I still want to do the heels. I have 2 kids and my feet broke. I don't know what happened. They just broke. Our next storyteller is, again, an icon in the Boston fashion scene. He is a couturier and he's an instructor at the School of Fashion Design. Please welcome Daniel Foshay.
And Bethany was a fantastic model. She modeled for me as well. Thank you guys so much for being here tonight. Again, like Alicia, I also thought we were going to all be seated on a sofa and wouldn't have to stand up here and do stand-up. But my story is similar to some of the other stories we've already heard this evening. I was basically been doing this for a very, very, very long time in the Boston area. I've been blessed to be a designer working here in Boston since I first came here at 17 years old. I've been designing under my own label since 1985 and have had designed women's special occasion apparel. So I've just been surrounded by wonderfully supportive clients, wonderfully supportive fashion people in the community who have always been so kind and so supportive. And I was really trying to think of that one story, but because I really don't want to share clients' names and embarrassing stories of torn pantyhose and falling mothers of the bride who had had one too many glasses of champagne, I actually thought of something that Jay was inspirational in. He actually had set me up during Boston Fashion Week for an interview with Chronicle magazine. And Chronicle had come to the studio, and the young woman I was speaking to she just really kept driving the point about what was your inspiration. And I kept saying, of course, my mother, who, any aging homosexual man is incredibly close to their mother. And her mother, who had been trained as a fashion professional, for her it was something that was embarrassing to her. She didn't really own it and sort of sewed on the quiet and didn't want anybody to know that she had made all my mother's clothes. But she really was the person I watched as a child create something out of nothing, magically. And in particular, there's one story, she kept asking me, kept pushing at it, and I said, actually, it was Miss Podgorski. My sister Ann and I were 2 years apart. Miss Podgorski had been a babysitter of ours and then became the lay teacher at a Catholic school that my older sister was going to. And she had gotten engaged to my father's oldest brother's son. So anyway, Miss Podgorski asked if Ann and I could be the ring bearer and flower girl. So at some point, I remember distinctly standing on my grandmother's kitchen table in my long johns, and her with a piece of brown paper and a red marker or a red crayon and a blue marker, creating the jacket front with the lapel and cutting the armhole and blah, blah, blah. And we still weren't quite sure what was going on. And I remember my mother took us back home, which was only 2 doors away, with a great aunt living in between us. And she was trying to explain to us what a flower girl and a ring bearer were. And so she had dragged out the big white box and lifted the lid and took out her wedding album. And I knew right away with the tissue paper between the pages that this was important. And I was seeing the pictures, but of course not relating that was my mother in the pictures. And then she could see that, I actually think she was getting a little emotional because she was actually just pregnant with my little sister. And she was seeing her little tiny waist in those pictures. And so next thing I knew, she was up the stairs into the attic, back down with a bigger white box. And on the dining room table, she started opening layers of blue tissue paper, and out came a hoop and a petticoat and the gown and the headpiece, the whole 9 yards. And within moments, she was stripping out of her tweed skirt and her turquoise blue sweater set, I still remember it, and putting on the hoop, the petticoat, the bra, and having my sister Ann jump up onto the chair and button the back of her dress up. And when it buttoned all the way, meaning she fit into her dress after 2 kids, She literally picked up the train over one arm, grabbed us with each hand, and ran down. Well, she actually took a moment to stop in the mirror, which I distinctly remember, and put her little pillbox hat on, just so. Grabbed the train, grabbed each of us by one hand, threw open the front door, ran out, down the front walk, down the sidewalk, to my grandmother's, where she flung open the door and threw her train in and scared the hell out of my grandfather, who was fixing the television, and screamed, "It still fits, it still fits." And fast forward 6 weeks, the same sort of story. I saw Miss Podgorski on Friday afternoon. She ran the rehearsal for her wedding at St. Mary's Catholic Church with her little clipboard and her tweed skirt and her sweater set. And then the next day, Ann and I, in our yellow and white seersucker outfits that my grandmother had made us, Ann's skirt this big. I was so jealous. I had to wear shorts. It started even back then, Yolanda. And I remember standing in the back of the church holding my little pillow, and that big black car roll up, and Mr. Podgorski got out with a top hat and spats. It was so glamorous. The door swung open, and Miss Podgorski, who really looked like every other lay teacher at St. Mary's Catholic School, stepped out of that car like a princess in this huge white gown, the tiara on their head. It was just a magical moment. And I swear there was never a Saturday that went by during the months of June through September that I was not at St. Mary's Catholic Church on Saturdays just to see that moment happen again. And now I'm blessed because I get to do this for a living. I literally send a poor woman into a dressing room with a long line foundation, and then as she steps out, I drop a dress over her head, and I see it start to take shape in her eyes as I'm fastening her up from the back and pinning, and you see how transformative clothing can be and what it really can bring to a person's life and really change the way they see themselves. It has nothing to do with the dress and the beads and the feathers, although I love the dress with the beads and the feathers. It really is about how they see themselves in that mirror. So that's my story. Thanks so much.
Daniel Foshay. Okay, so tell us what your look was 25 years ago. Freshman year of high school, fitting in but being individual at Chess King. Do you remember Chess King? Yes, I remember that. Fitting in but being individual. What was your look 25 years ago? No wrinkles. Wrinkles are great. And even the people who are in diapers are going to have them. Right? That's like my favorite. Whenever a young person's being like, "Ew, you're old." I'm like, "You will be too, or dead. So calm down." What was your look 25 years ago? Long hair, corduroy suit, and wide tie. Yeah, I think that's back in Brooklyn. I think we're doing that again. Your next storyteller, another great friend of mine. I think everyone in this business is I have some connection to. I absolutely adore her. I went rogue when I wasn't supposed to. And I went to see her to see if maybe I would model for her. And I worked with her for years after that. I adore her. She's a fashion event and producer. Please welcome Mary Flynn.
Thank you, everybody. I have notes. Nobody else before me had notes, but I might have to, it's my life and I might forget something about it. But my story starts about 15 years ago when I was working at Filene's, and Filene's stopped existing. I was the special events manager there, and I was in my mid-50s and had to find a job. I never looked for a job in my 50s before. I'd never looked for a job in my 40s before. This was quite interesting. I'd heard something about age discrimination, but really didn't know that it would apply to me someday. You know how we never think we're going to get there. So anyway, I started looking for jobs. I flew all over the country, countless interviews, countless disappointments. And I finally just thought maybe I wasn't going to be able to continue in this career. Maybe it was over. I felt old. But very surprisingly, I suddenly got a call from Bloomingdale's in Chestnut Hill, and they were looking for a public relations manager. that was great. I didn't have to leave Boston. I'd already worked in department stores. I was excited about it, and I felt like I was back in the game. And it was a pretty big game because Bloomingdale's at that time was the #1 branch store in America. After 59th Street, Bloomingdale's, Chestnut Hill. And sometimes they did more volume than 59th Street. So I'm thinking, this is great, I'm on a roll again. But I apparently wasn't paying really close attention during the job interview because I found out as soon as I started that they expected me to do all of the fashion shows. That was really scary for me. I have no fashion background. I worked with the fashion team at Filene's, but I had never really had a moment of my own where I had produced a fashion show. And I'm there the first day, and a sales manager comes running in and says, thank God they hired somebody. We're doing a show on Thursday, an informal show, and we need a model. And I went, oh, okay, like I knew what that meant. And as soon as she left the office, I just sat there and I thought, how do I do this? The only modeling agency that I'd ever heard of in Boston, because I had met Maggie, was Maggie Inc. So I just got the phone book out, I guess. No, this is before cell phones, I think. And I called Maggie Inc., and I got this guy named Casey. Everybody knows Casey in the business. He basically said to me, well, what kind of girl do you want? And I said, I don't know. He said, oh, okay. He was very busy. He said, can you give me something like age, style, like, a clue? And I said, I'm not sure. And he said, okay, who's the designer? And I told him, I think at least I knew something to say. And he said, I know what to do. I'll send you a girl half an hour before the show on Thursday, no problem. So Thursday rolls around, and in walked my model. It was Linda Cole, Yolanda's daughter. The premier Boston fashion model was given to me for this little show. And I know Casey had prepped her because she walked in and she said, where's the clothes? And I had this very disorganized rack of clothes. She's like, okay, we've got like 20 minutes. Started organizing the rack. What about the shoes? I had a look of panic on my face, I know. She said, don't worry, doll, I brought a shoe bag. I didn't know what a shoe bag was. I didn't know models came with shoe bags. I learned more in an hour and a half with Linda Cole than I probably would have in fashion school, all apologies to fashion schools. And she knew she was taking me step by step through my first show, which was terrifying for me. So thank God for that moment. And as she left that day, she said, doll, you're going to be great. She said, I want to be in all your shows. She was in all my shows. So that was a real learning experience for me. And as I went along, the entire fashion community embraced me, taught me, and helped me get through, I would say, over 500 shows in my 5 years there. It was amazing. We had the big ones, too. And it wasn't just that we did an Eileen Fisher fashion show. We did it with Eileen Fisher. Dana Buckman, Tory Burch, and Tim Gunn, who I adored. They all came to Filene's. Filene's. They fired me. Forget Filene's. They got rid of all of us. So my story really becomes about the kindness and the love and how the fashion community really turned my life around. And 55, it's never too late. You don't know what's going to happen to you. None of us do. So you might think that you have like a 5-year plan or that you have a career path. But what I found out was that my life really began when I thought it was over. My career was because of this community. So that's my story. You never know. I forgot to mention one of my best models at Bloomingdale. Love you.
You never do know where life is going to take you. I was not the best model at all before when I was younger, but after 40, this is why I went rogue, because I was told Bloomingdale's like size 0, 19-year-old models, and I was like, well, I'm a size 4 over 40-year-old model. Let's see what this lady has to say about it. And Mary gave me the opportunity, and we worked together for years and years, and it kind of kickstarted a second modeling career. So you never do know, ever. Keep that in mind. I'll read a couple of slips. We'll have our one more storyteller, and then we'll take a brief intermission. 5 minutes, stretch your legs, grab a cocktail, do what you need to do. What was your look 25 years ago? 100 miles per hour, slimmer, stronger, and more stamina for this and that. I agree. What was your look 25 years ago? I wasn't born yet. Here we go again. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. The braggadocios in this room. Just kidding. I would be, too. I feel like I need to go to, like, a bingo night with, like, centenarians and just talk about, when I was 50. Just to see what that feels like. What was your look 25 years ago? Backless leather jacket. Yes. Right? I want that. One more. What was your look 25 years ago? Midi skirts, shoulder pad blouses, and suit jackets. Colored tights, cloth boho pocketbooks, unique pins from antique stores, black everything and/or denim everything. That is my spirit animal. The slip is who I was. Your next storyteller is the author of Fashion Design, referenced, professor at the School of Fashion at LaSalle University. Please welcome Alicia Kennedy.
Yeah, not my everyday shoes. So, this is my GlamSlam story. It's on paper because I'm a writer, not a speaker. So bear with me. As Bethany said, I teach in the School of Fashion at LaSalle University. One course on the history of 20th century fashion and another on the intersection of dress and culture. My earliest lesson in the power of fashion came on the streets of Tokyo when I was 5. My mother paused as we approached a corner and said, "Doesn't she look smart?" I have only a vague recollection of the woman, Japanese, about my mother's age, dressed in a Western-style shift and coat. It was my mother I was in awe of. She could divine someone's intelligence by the way they dressed. Only much later would I ponder the cultural complexity of that equation. My mother, whose own style was effortless in an offhand Jackie Kennedy sort of way, made most of my clothes until I was 12. At that point, newly enriched through babysitting, I began buying garments at flea markets and even at garage sales. Augmenting my uniform of Levi's flares and work shirts, or positioning the time period here, were the occasional Edwardian chemise, mod mini, Filipino barang, each of which carried a personality that I could try on for fit. Other than the Scottish cashmere sweaters from the shop that my Scottish mother managed, new store-bought clothes remained rare. An exception came as I neared high school in my graduation. One day, having dropped my mother off at work, I wandered into the nearby I Magnets and fell under the spell of a dress. A knit wrap of white and blush pink flowers on a background of black. I tried it on, gasped at my reflection, sighed, put it back, and went home. That afternoon, my mother called to ask me to bring something when I came to pick her up, a new dress that she had bought herself and was exchanging for a different size. I opened her closet. There was the dress, in my size. Generously, though perhaps with her own internal sigh, my mother gave it to me. I didn't know then that I would be wearing an iconic piece of the 70s. What I did recognize is in that dress, I transformed for a moment from girl into woman. Now, aside from the Dion von Furstenberg dress, which I wore till it was a rag, I continued to shop at flea markets. And although I was very aware of the storytelling potential of clothing, I paid little attention to actual fashion designers. I was studying history at UC Berkeley and assumed that I would embark on an academic career, until it dawned on me that I might have to stand in front of a crowd of strangers and talk. My workaround plan was to start my own magazine. I had founded a small journal at the university and serendipitously landed a job at a just-launched design publication. My relationship to fashion took a swerve when Issey Miyake's Body Works exhibition arrived at San Francisco MoMA, and I went there to review the show and book for the magazine. Suddenly, here were clothes in an art museum whose designer made you think actively about the space between your body and what you put on it, and about the tensions among cultural ideals of beauty. Soon after, a Comme des Garçons boutique opened in the city. The clothes seemed always to be deeply on sale, as if no one knew quite what to do with them. Wearing something twisted or shredded by Rei Kawakubo invited peculiar looks and interesting conversations. A man on the street said of one off-kilter outfit that I looked like a demented princess. An endorsement, I think. I did go on to co-edit a journal of architecture and design culture and to publish a 400-page book on fashion, which led to my invitation to teach at LaSalle. I try to convey to my students how our clothes tell stories, personal and social. Of course, we're not always in control of the narrative, but we can wrestle the storyline back and enjoy where it takes us.
Alicia Kennedy. Let's take a brief 5-minute break, stretch your legs, wander around, get a beverage, and we'll see you back here in about 5 minutes. Thank you. Hello, everybody. Hello. Hi, yes, you know the drill, you clap. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. That was just like a made-up song. I have young children, so I just make up songs for everything. I'm going to read a few slips just while people find their seats, just while we get settled and get grounded in the room, as they say. This person was asked, what was your look 25 years ago? They replied, Euro look, Speedo bathing suit, cool glasses. Still do. Is anyone curious if this person, this is their daily look 25 years ago? Like, were they walking down Newbury Street in their Speedo and cool glasses? Because we all saw that dude, right? We know who that is. What was your look 25 years ago? Light wash jeans, shoulder pads, and Dr. Martens. Spirit animal again. Clap if you wore Dr. Martens. All right. I used to wear them, and I had so many pairs, but I ended up cooking in a lot of restaurant kitchens and leaving them there when I left the kitchen, so I ended up with none for the last 15 years. And a few years ago, I had a midlife crisis, and I was like, I either want a pair of Dr. Martens or a baby. So I got the Dr. Martens. I broke them in good, and then I had the baby. So now I have the baby goes very nicely with my Dr. Martens. what was your look 25 years ago? Armani pantsuit, timeless, classic. And how about one more? What was your look 25 years ago? Loose-fitting silk blouse and skirt, belted at the hip, mid-calf. Yes, that's back now too, right? What's old is new. Your next storyteller is the Chief Experience and Culture Officer and of the Berkshire Bank and founder of the Urban Labs. Please welcome Malleo Lazoo.
Oh, wow. I didn't do it. Or maybe I did. I don't know. What are we asking? What could I have possibly done? So 25 years ago, I just have to give a shout out because I was rocking cross colors and FUBU. And I just need to give a shout out to hip hop fashion and hip hop designers for you, by you. It was a great time. We were once again finding our blackness, and it was a wonderful, wonderful thing. So as you can tell by my title, I'm not in fashion. I'm a social justice warrior. I'm a community organizer. And everyone would always laugh because a lot of times when you hear about, and that's my girlfriend who didn't shut off her phone. Go, Sydney. No. And if you know anything about community organizing, you know they're not really known for their fashion. And I was not that person. I won Best Dress in 6th grade and decided to continue my reign for as long as possible. So I would door knock in an outfit like this or in heels. And I would go to doors and be like, hi, my name's Malleo, and I want you to register to vote. And I would be in fashion doing it. And so sometimes organizers thought that maybe I was a plant because I wasn't bought in enough. And I always said, no, I'm down with the revolution, but I'm not giving up my outfits unless I know we're going to win. Only if we successfully overthrow will I start talking about what I'm going to give up. And in thinking about my talk tonight, I was thinking about, well, as a woman who's not in fashion but has worked with Jay to do the disability fashion show a couple of years ago that we did together, that was such an amazing, amazing time, yes. And you can see the whole video of it, and Jay's look for Paralympian gold medalist Sherry Blowett is in the museum in PEM. Is in PEM now, so you can check out the outfit that he built for her. So when I was thinking about what story I wanted to tell, and I wanted it to be about fashion, but as a social justice organizer, I also wanted to be around accessibility and how you show up authentically. And that's something that fashion can really help you do. And it's something that I love not only about fashion, but what Billy Porter is reminding us recently. That it's a Wednesday, be fabulous, put on that gown. Oh, you doing laundry? Wear the gown, girl, who cares? That self-expression is so, so important. And it started for me when I was 18 years old and I got a tongue ring. And I got a tongue ring because it was my roof and my rules because I was 18. My mother was still helping me through college, but that's a different thing. She was in Hawaii and I was in Boston. And this tongue ring became my identity. It was my proof of my coolness. It was proof of my hipness. It was proof of how down I am. My tongue ring with my braids and my beads, oh, now we're talking total organizer look as far as I was concerned. My first fundraiser I ever did while starting Mass Vote was with Alec Baldwin, and he asked me about it. And I said, oh my God, look, yep, it's a conversation starter with the stars. And I loved it. And then I met another star named Harry Belafonte. Yeah, woo-woo. And I worked for Harry Belafonte for 7 years. And the work was real. We were working with gang members and gangs, helping gangs start businesses. And it was real personal work. I mean, an 11-year-old girl sitting in jail for prostitution, not old enough to consent, yet sitting in jail for a sex crime, right? You see these worlds as you're walking amongst them. And Harry believed in my dedication, and he believed in what I was doing. And so he brought me on to work for him. And he said, you're going to be my political director. You're going to represent me. And I was like, oh, my God, yes, totally, of course. Deo. And you got to do it at least once by him, you know, and then you just, like, you look away, you know. And he said, but I need you to do one thing. And I said, what's that? He goes, you got to lose the tongue ring. Okay, sir. sellout older gentleman who obviously doesn't understand the times, right? Like I try to teach him, like, you're asking me to sell out my realness, who I am. And he said, I want you to come to like meet Nelson Mandela, Hugh Masekela, Hugo Chavez, all of these people. But you're not representing me with that tongue ring in your mouth. Now, I started by saying I'm a social justice warrior. And the idea to serve Harry Belafonte was undeniable. To work for a man who bought Martin Luther King his home, who bought Martin Luther King his life insurance, knowing King was gonna get killed, and wanting to make sure that Belafonte, and wanting to make sure that the King family was okay. This is a man you serve if you're a social justice warrior. So I took out the tongue ring. And I had a 9-hour dinner with Hugo Chavez. And I cried in Hugh Masekela's house. And I had an amazing, amazing career with him. And I found an older fashion. So now, I'm executive vice president of a bank. And I wore this today. No, I did not. And I'm at that moment again. After all these years of helping people, I have now been invited inside the house, in the house, to make change, to figure out how we can actually close the wealth gap. How do we redline less? How do we not do predatory lending? I'm sitting in a publicly traded company, and now I have to figure out, what do I need to change? So I'll end the story this way. Palazzo pants and a fabulous ponytail is what I plan on wearing when I go speak at the New York Stock Exchange. Thank you very much.
Malia Lazoo. We have something in common. My mom and dad are social justice warriors. They're Marxist activists since I was born. We've been on marches in DC. We've skipped school and taken 10-hour bus rides to DC to march for gay rights, apartheid, Nelson Mandela. Like you imagine it, like we were taken out of school to get on a bus to go march for it. That's right. That's right. We had all of our chants, El Pueblo, Unido, Jamás será vencido. Like I couldn't recite, the periodic table of elements, but I could throw a social justice chant and no justice, no peace. My dad was so disappointed when I wanted to model. I mean, I talked about doing comedy and being in TV and modeling since I was a little kid, and my dad was always like, no, you serve the people, and you be autonomous, and you do what you want to do, and you be independent. So I did that instead. And when I was leaving for Paris to model, he was so disappointed. He was so angry at me. I mean, I feel like I could have robbed a bank, and he would have been more proud of me than leaving to go model. And I was holding back a college. I had gotten accepted to Hunter College, and I was delaying it so I could go model in Europe. He was heartbroken. And the night before I was leaving, he said, I just don't understand how this happened. Like I raised you to believe in the people and to believe that we're all, we all deserve as much as each other. And I'm like, and I am that person, Daddy. I am that person. I believe we should all wear Armani, okay? Like, he is my friend now. He's my friend now. And he used to, I don't know if that must have touched him and shifted his mindset, but over the years, he became like the ghost of Filene's basement. That's what they used to call him before it closed, the real Filene's basement downtown. You could always see my dad, like, going around through all the bins with a little razor, a little box cutter razor, sawing off buttons and chain belts from Chanel suits so no one would buy it till it went 75% off. And I have a closet of Valentino suits, Armani suits. He would say things to me like, you probably don't know this guy. He's a European designer. His name's Moschino. And I'd be like, Daddy, I raised you right. I can't wait to figure out how we're going to have a revolution and fashion at the same time. Yes. That's it. That's hashtag the revolution can look good. For the older people in here, that's a pound sign. And then don't put any spaces between any of the words, okay? Your next storyteller for the evening is the host and co-creator of Boston Red Carpet. Let's welcome Tanya Mezrich to the stage.
So I read somewhere that Nancy Pelosi was the longest speech in history on the House floor. It was about 8 hours and 7 minutes. I promise you we'll go a little bit under that. So my story with fashion began in my childhood, and I never really expected to be in fashion. My path to getting there is somewhat serpentine. I always loved art, and I loved drawing, and I thought, well, what better way to combine those two things was to go to architecture school and become an architect. So that was my dream, and sadly, my dad squashed that dream. Our dads are very powerful in our lives. And said that, you know, architecture is not a field for women. So yeah, it was sad. But he was an immigrant. He was from Taiwan, and he was from, the olden days when, there were certain careers that women weren't going to succeed in, and he was just trying to protect me. So being the good daughter that I was, I ended up going to dental school. Architect of the mouth. And in dental school, I still had this passion for art. So I found ways to express myself artistically, and one of them was I realized that the tools we were using in ortho class, if anybody ever had braces and saw what the orthodontists were doing, they've got these pliers. I realized that those same pliers I could use to make jewelry. So I started designing jewelry on the side, and this was sort of like my first foray into the fashion world. Along that same time, I was doing a rotation in the oral surgery department, and a distressed patient took a bloody tooth and chucked it at me down the hallway. It was gross. And that was right about when I figured out that maybe dentistry is not for me. So I was doing this jewelry design, and it segued into a fashion line called Mike and Ton, and then TV coverage on fashion as well, and this TV show that I have. And even though in fashion and in the TV field, I'm in those fields, I still had this fear of public speaking. That's why I have my notes. In dentistry, we weren't really doing a lot of speaking in public. We were mainly just talking teeth. So even though, I'm in front of the camera and, just thinking about being in front of real people like you guys is paralyzing for me. I think some of my other speakers had the same fears about tonight. And so in fact, one of the first speaking situations happened to me this summer where I was asked to do some public speaking, and I really basically almost turned it down. I was asked to MC the Boston Arts Academy Senior Fashion Show. Some of you, I think, were there who are here tonight. And I really believed in supporting arts education, and I love what BPS is doing with that school. I think it's such a strong program and such a gem for our city. So Danella Clark from BAA called me up, and she said she wanted to honor me for achievement in fashion technology. I see one of my fellow awardees in the audience. And of course, I was so over the moon. We had been coming up on our year-long anniversary for Boston's Red Carpet, the TV show. It's a half-hour show on philanthropy and fashion. And so it was such a huge honor to be able to accept this award. But that wasn't all. She actually said, well, I would also like you to MC the fashion show. And I paused because I didn't really know what to say. I was flattered, but I was also terrified. I knew that it came with this duty of speaking in front of hundreds of people. And I said, let me just think about it, please. So I hung up the phone, and my heart was pounding, kind of like it is right now. And, I had that giddy schoolgirl feeling of, oh my gosh, I just won this award. I'm getting this award. That's amazing. It's like when you've sold your first 100 boxes of Girl Scout cookies and you're getting that first badge on your sash. And so it meant a lot. But I didn't know what to do. So I turned to my husband, who's in the back row there, supporting me. He's my rock. He's my foundation. And he's someone I turn to when I kind of have these hard questions I don't know the answers to. And he looked at me and he said, you know what? You got to do this. This is your people. This is all about fashion. You love fashion, and you're going to be great. So I often don't listen to him, but I'm glad I did, because that night I gobbled down about 10 of these relaxation chocolates. I don't know if anybody's tried those before. They're probably mostly placebo effect, but I thought it kind of calmed me, and I took the stage. My hands were kind of sweaty. I grabbed the mic, and I was wearing a sequin dress, kind of like this one, and I started to speak, started to, MC the show, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is great. What was I so worried about? This is a piece of cake. So I started talking about the next look that was coming up, and it was recycled fashion. And I made some really lame joke about it and got a few laughs. And then seconds later, I see coming down the runway is a row of models, and I think they were in wedding dresses or something, but it was absolutely not the recycled fashions. And my heart just dropped. I was like, oh my gosh. It's too late. I can't turn back. I can't run off of this stage. The music director, she looked at me. She saw I was in distress, and so she handed me her run of show. And then I figured out, oh my gosh, I'm going off the wrong script. This is not my night. So at the next point in the night when I came up to speak, I made a joke about how it was, my first time, and these things happen. And the room was dark, kind of like this, and it had spotlights in my eyes, but I could sort of see a few smiles in the audience, and really could just feel that thrill that these families were there, and these fellow students, and each of them were, as each fashion came out, you could just feel it in the air. And, I realized that on the runway, no matter what happens in the rawness of it and the exposure where your seams are all out, they're either perfect, they're not perfect, they're duct taped together because you had to sew it in, or the thing ripped in backstage. I realized that the show must go on. And I myself know what it's like to do that because, a lot of us experienced Boston Fashion Week the first time we had the tent behind the Mandarin. My fashion line, Mike and Ton, we opened that show, and I realized that night that things aren't going to always go how you planned. The memories are still so clear to me. We had a broken zipper. We duct taped the model in. We sewed her in. Then she came back and we ripped her out to get her into her second look. We had models that were sick, so they had to double up their looks. We had hair people that didn't show up, so our tent was kind of empty, but they were super busy trying to just get everyone finished. We had stained clothes from the rehearsal that we had to clean up. We had samples that weren't ready, and our sample maker was running to try to find us to deliver it, and he couldn't find the tent because there's no address for a tent in the backyard of a hotel. The point is that we've all been there before. We all have struggles on our show day, whether it be rain on a photo shoot day, or slides not showing up correctly in your presentation, or a model tripping down the runway, or a product not showing up because of a mail delay, or your show edit not getting in on time because you had to make some changes in the script, or a commercial shoot not going your way because your product isn't there, or pattern delivery. Your pattern shows up and it doesn't look anything like what you thought it was supposed to look like. But these struggles are really what make us all who we are. And they shape us, they give us strength for the next time around. And tonight is my next time around. When Jay asked me to do this, I said, yes, of course. I was terrified. I am terrified. But being here with all of you guys are my fashion family. And being here and being able to share my experience and how it has shaped me, and to share all of your experiences and listen to them and feel how it has shaped us all, it means the world to me. So I just want to leave you with this quote from one of the fashion greats, Coco Chanel. "My life didn't please me, so I created my life, and so can you."
Tanya Mezrich, let her hear it. No one has anything to be nervous about. All the stories tonight have been fabulous, right? Do you agree? Amazing. Everybody's story has been amazing. We have a couple more to come. I'll read a couple of slips. What was your look 25 years ago? I was 5 years old, so here we go. I guess I was wearing my mom's style's clothes. And of course, sneakers with lights on the back. Parentheses, very fashion at that time. End parentheses. They're still fashionable. I still like them. What was your look 25 years ago? I had moved back to Boston. I like that. That's just my look. What's your look, Boston? Yeah, but what was like Boston? Okay, back up. Is that the Boston look? Yeah? I was thinking more like Red Sox hats, and that's the spring. All right. I live in a part of Boston where that's the year round. That's the year round. Kevin. It's Kevin. Kevin wears it. Gotta wear socks out. Represent, right? Yeah, no. I wish. All right, one more. What was your look 25 years ago? Working in state government, my office style was playfully professional, accented with funky jewelry and artful scarves. Yeah, I think that's another takeaway. We all must wear artful scarves in life. Our next storyteller is the global head of creative direction and future for Reebok. Please, let's welcome Karen Corellis Reuter.
Is that good?
Yeah.
Great. So I thought I would spend a little time this evening talking to you all about my journey. And I certainly have gotten a lot of things right along the way, but it's where I got it wrong that I've learned the most. So I'm going to share some of those stories with you, specifically around diversity, inclusion, and access. I'm the proud granddaughter of 4 Greek immigrants. I grew up in Hammond, Indiana. Does anyone know where Hammond, Indiana is? It's the south side of Chicago. It's the first exit when you're leaving Chicago. Chicago Cubs? Growing up in Hammond in the 60s and 70s was an amazing experience. Diversity, differences, family, basketball ruled, and Chicago was always right there. I thought the whole world was like that. I was wrong. I went down to Purdue University. Any Big Ten fans here? Purdue? Boilermakers? Boy, I'll get to something you recognize, I'm sure, at some point. Woo. So I went down to Purdue, and I majored in architecture. I wanted to do something creative. I had a dad who told me I should get a job when I graduated. And I started to study architecture. Really deep down in my heart, I wanted to design cars. I've never designed a car, but I have a lot of opinions on them. And during my still life drawing class, when everyone else was drawing flowers and landscapes, I was drawing hair dryers and shampoo bottles. And I had a professor, and he asked me, Karen, have you ever heard of industrial design? And I said, no, what's that? And he said, it's like an architect, but for product. And I remember that moment where I stood there and I said, you can be that? And I discovered my beloved profession of industrial design, which I've practiced now for 40 years. Still practice. So I'm gonna cross my fingers now. Anybody remember a company named Wang Laboratories? Anybody? Yes! Thank God. So I went to work in 1980 for Wang Laboratories as an industrial designer. And this was when computers were coming out of the back room and landing on people's desktops. And I got to work, very closely with Dr. Wang, who is the founder of Wang Laboratories. And I love to tell the story, and my husband loves it when I tell this. He used to call me girl. I was the only woman industrial designer, and he used to refer to me as girl. And when I told that story to some colleagues a few months ago, they said, "Did that bother you?" And I have to be honest, right? It was 39 years ago. It didn't bother me. I was happy that he knew I was a designer, and I was happy to have the time with him. And I became the first woman at Wang Laboratories to receive a design patent in 1984. Oh, that's so nice. Thank you. I thought our work as women in business was done. I didn't want to be known as the first woman designer that received a design patent. I just wanted to be a great designer. I thought our work was done. Boy, was I wrong. I've spent the last 20 years in the sport, footwear, and fashion industry. For a pre-Title IX girl from Northwest Indiana, I had found my dream job. I spent 12 years at Nike in Beaverton, Oregon, and I thought I had accomplished all that I could in my profession. Wrong. Today, I lead creative direction at Reebok, and I am so committed, yes, still to diversity and inclusion, but most importantly, access to design for all. Thank you.
Karen Corellis Reuter. The question is, what was your look 25 years ago? This is so creatively written. I hope I do it justice. 2019 minus 25 equals 1994. Short hair and suits, linen, white jeans, a fabulous navy Perry Ellis swing coat, hey, with a brown faux fur collar, with a wire in it so you could style it. Yas, yas. What was your look 25 years ago? Two-piece pink romper with white polka dots and a pink bow as large as my head. Totally in. In again. What was your look 25 years ago? Skinny was my look, and there's a little stick person. But it's good. Like, that was your look then, but now you get to eat. Now you eat, right? Now you get a sandwich when you want it. I love that. I loved after I quit my first round of modeling, I was very caught up in being the right weight and being the right size. And then when I was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't stand it. And I started eating. And I would always hear people, why would you quit? Why did you quit? It's so glamorous, such a glamorous life. Why did you quit? And I would tell them because I got hungry. And I'm going to eat now. I commend the industry today trying to break away from that standard. I'm loving the models that I see in the ads nowadays. I really love it. And for all of you designers and industry professionals supporting that, thank you very much. Bitches get hungry. Okay. Your next storyteller come to the stage. Well, I could tell you 1,000 million stories about he and I. I'll tell you just the quickest one, or he'll tell you. And I don't want to take up his storytelling time with this story. But this is how we met. I was a model for a benefit for the homeless. The money coming from the show was to benefit the homeless. That was it. It was just the homeless, okay? We didn't really know how it would or where it was going or if people were just going to hand out $50 bills to homeless people. We didn't know. I did it. I did the show because Absolute Vodka sponsored it, and they promised us a VIP room with little nips of Absolute. That's where I was back then. The show was called Absolute Models for the Homeless. Also, remember, keep in the back, my parents raised me as a Marxist social activist. So we get to the show. I was modeling back at that time. The ad campaign was Rachel Williams wearing chainmail dresses, gold, 24 karat gold, silver, sterling silver, platinum, and that was the ad campaign. She was there. She modeled down the runway, and afterwards, it was great. I told all the stories about last week's Saturday Night Live. And in the VIP room, there were little chainmail bags as gifts for us. I'm just stuffing them with nips of Absolute. Like I'm drinking one and stuffing five, and drinking one and stuffing five. And a man walks up and he says, "I'm a reporter for the Herald. I would love your thoughts on this fashion show. What do you think about it?" I was like, "Oh my God, it's so cool that I get to give back to society at large, because sometimes being a model, people think we're vapid and we don't care, but I really like this opportunity to show that I care." And he said, "Really?" And I went, "Fuck no, this is ridiculous. If Absolute really wanted to help the homeless, like scratch the fashion show, melt down those fucking dresses, and build shelters and create jobs and give people addresses." And he pretty much quoted me the next day in the paper. And that, I have to say, led to my career in comedy. Please welcome journalist and author Jonathan Soroff.
Totally true. I'm also going to tell a little tale on you. Shortly after that, Bethany and I became instant friends, and she left for Europe on that really tragic, your father was so disappointed when you went to Paris to model. And a few months later, I got a postcard of the Cathedral of Notre Dame, and on the back it said, "Help, they're keeping me hostage in Cinderella's castle." And I knew that Bethany was coming home after that. So my whole story with fashion, I guess, starts when I was an awkward, nerdy, gay teen. And when you're a teenager, all you want to do is fit in. It's the only thing that's important. And this was, early 1980s, the Preppy Handbook had come out. And so I became as preppy as it is humanly possible to become. I'm talking about a turtleneck with a popped collar, polo shirt over that, and a button-down shirt and a sweater tied around I looked like something from a John Hughes movie. And it was only because I wanted to fit in. And then I got a lot older, and I realized that instead of fitting in, what I really wanted to do was stand out. So I started, you want to know my look from 25 years ago? It was a shirt from Charivari, a really heavy sweatshirt, black. Everything was black. And a Marlboro. That was my look. Which I thought made me stand out. Definitely didn't. It was the 80s. But I got a little older, and, as somebody pointed out, life is what happens when you're busy making other plans. I got a job as a columnist, writing a social column for the Improper Bostonian magazine. And when you're going to charity galas night after night, there's basically two things you need. If you're a man, you can get away with having a blue blazer and a tuxedo. And I remember I didn't have a tuxedo, I had a blue blazer. So I said to my publisher, "You need to buy me a tuxedo." And so he took me to Armani, and he got me a tuxedo, which was very, very generous of him. And I didn't stand out at those parties that I went to. I looked like everybody else. March of the Penguins, always, And it was reassuring, and I started thinking as an adult, if I were a woman, I wouldn't really be able to do this job, because this is before Rent the Runway or anything. And these are black tie galas. Women have to come and you can't wear the same gown every time. And I always thought it was incredibly unfair. And I noticed something else was whenever I would see a woman and say, that's a really lovely dress, or what a beauty. And there was always something along the lines of this old thing. Oh, I got this at Target. This was $20. It's 20 years old. Whatever. And there was always an apology. So the only real thing I have to say is never apologize. Thanks.
Jonathan Soroff. I come away with, I will never apologize again. I'll never do that again, ever. I did it all the time. I'd always say, oh, this is from TJ Maxx. I paid $7. I'll never do that again. Thank you, Thing. That's our nickname for each other. Thing 1 and Thing 2. Hashtag that, you guys. Hashtag # never apologize. No space in between. What was your look 25 years ago? Bangs and 80s Eastern European fashion. I like that it's in parentheses, fashion, but I think that was very fashionable. To me, that's Duran Duran. Is that right? Duran Duran Thompson twins. For you younger people, I don't even know what to say, honestly. I give up. I totally give up. I was going to say, watch MTV, but MTV has, yes, it's got people talking. Where's the music? My 3-year-old son asked me that. He said, Mom, where can I watch videos? I'm like, how do you know about videos? YouTube, right? Yeah. I'm a tyrant. He doesn't watch YouTube yet. What was your look 25 years ago? Mary Mecco, print dresses, mid-calf, and puffy hair. Feeling it. All right. Our closing story for the evening is by celebrity makeup artist. Please welcome Gina Welfel.
No, that's fine. Thank you. Hi. Let me put my glasses on here. I'm a little nervous tonight, so just bear with me. I'm kind of new to the Boston fashion world. Working with Boston Fashion Week has been wonderful. It has opened so many doors for me and has helped me to expand my views. It's helped me to embrace change and new ideas. But most importantly, it's taught me that fashion comes from a deeper place. Fashion is a form of self-expression. It's a statement and a declaration. It can be sentimental or fierce, and it can unify and embolden. Tonight, I'm going to talk a little bit about my project. It's called Gilded: The Art of Healing. The inspiration came about 6 years ago. I came across a picture of a tiny broken teacup that was mended in gold. In ancient Japan, cherished pieces of pottery weren't discarded when broken. Craftsmen used the art of kintsugi, which translates to golden joinery. They painstakingly put these pieces back together, and it's a really hard process. They have to tap into the urushi tree, which is about 10 times worse than poison ivy, if you can imagine that. And they use that to make lacquer. And once they've spent months polishing this bowl back together, they dust it with pure gold. The kintsugi philosophy embraces the illumination of imperfection and the acceptance of the impermanent. Not only is it aesthetically stunning, it's also so completely human. In June of 2015, my son James died by suicide. He was 18. Jimmy struggled with mental illness, and it affected every aspect of his life and ultimately led to his death. He was a beautiful, creative, and artistic soul, and I miss him every day. After we lost James, something cracked in me, and I don't have a better word for it. It just broke me wide open. And no one can really prepare you for the loss of your child. A short while later, that picture came back into my life again, the broken teacup. Except this time, I felt like the teacup, and I wondered how I could mend the fractures in me. In the days that followed, I thought more and more about emotional and physical scars. And I'm sure all of you have a scar, and I'm pretty clumsy, so I have a number of them. But I want you to look at it soon, and I want you to realize that it is proof that we heal. We rarely correlate this with our emotional convalescence. Tragedy and trauma can enter our lives at any moment, and in a sense, we're as delicate as a tiny piece of china, with a life not conducive to fragility. A wonderful, shy girl came into my life at that time. 2 years earlier, she had lost her sister at just 13 years old to suicide as well. As a means to cope with the loss, she began to self-harm. Her arms were lined with the battle scars of facing each day carrying that horrific despair. And oddly enough, I remember thinking how beautiful and almost warrior-like they were. And I know that sounds strange, but to me, every cut on her arm represented another day she stayed here with us, fighting to reclaim her sense of self. When we met, she was well into her recovery and was scheduled to have her scars removed, and I knew her story needed to be told, and I thought there was no better way to do that than to gild each cut and photograph her bravery. Photographer Bob Packard got a very strange email from me the next morning, and I was thrilled that he agreed to collaborate with me on this shoot. And in a few weeks, we did it, and we really captured her spirit. Bob went on to photograph 2 more survivors with me, and his work was very inspiring. And here's my experience with Boston fashion. It has really helped me to see the bigger picture. I've been blessed to collaborate with Terry and Tracy, and notice I didn't say your last name because I still can't pronounce it. And more recently, Michael Savoli has helped me so much with my project. You've taught me to look at the whole picture and find the balance and consider everything that goes into the shot, but most importantly, the subject. Getting a great shot isn't just about the clothes or the makeup or the lighting or the location. It's about creating a comfortable atmosphere so that your subject shines. And that's the primary goal of the Gilded Project, is I want to make our survivors shine. We've captured the devastating results of gun violence, the trauma of cancer, brain injury, open heart surgery, BRCA1 reconstruction, mental illness, but most importantly, we've captured our survivors' resolve and their will to thrive. Can we accept that there will be hurdles to overcome and that there should be? And the effort we put forth to resolve these challenges can further strengthen our spirit, deepen our ability to empathize, and add dimension to our existence? Can we change our perception of the wound and find beauty in the fractures? When I lost my Jimbo, so many people told me that everything happens for a reason. everything happens for a reason. That's bullshit. Yep. How was my son's life predetermined to end at 18, but others got to live a long, healthy life? Why was my son chosen to suffer with mental illness while others were happy? Who determined the cancer that grows in your chest? Or the stray gunshot that crashed through your skull? Or the loss of one's legs to a random car accident? Everything happens for a reason. I'll tell you what I've learned in the past 4.5 years. Tragedy happens with no rhyme or reason, and it leaves scars, both physical and emotional. And that's just life. But faith, love, family and friends, and the communities that we belong to, like this beautiful community that we have here tonight, grabs your hand and pulls you up and helps you to forge a beautifully reconstructed life. We heal better together. Okay, I want to take one more quick second and share that my oldest son, Jack, got married last weekend. Thank you. It was an amazing time. We were surrounded by friends and family and food and booze and really good blues music, and it was great. When my son decided he wanted to wear a vest, my daughter-in-law and I and my son, and we went in to see Alan Relu. And he stayed open late and spent at least 2 hours with us, picking every last detail. We picked this fabric because this is the color of my son's eyes. And we picked this fabric because the wedding venue is filled with sunflowers, and purple was my son James's favorite color. And as a special touch, my son James, when he was young, always used to say to Jack, "When I get older, I'm going to be your best man." So Alan took 2 T-shirts that were my son's favorite, and he lovingly cut them out and hand-sewed them on the inside so that my boy could have his best man with him. And that's what fashion is to me.
One more time for Gina Welfel. Wow. Okay. So everything does not happen for a reason, but I feel like tonight happened for a reason. That's right. So we could all be here, hear each other's stories, hear that story, and we can walk away sharing how wonderful this community is, hugging our loved ones because we don't know how long they'll be here with us, believing in the power of creativity, whether it's something you believe is worthy or not. It's creativity. We're pouring our hearts out, looking for connection. So walk away from tonight with all that and your hashtags. Hashtag beauty in the fractures. That's your last hashtag for the evening. Thank you all so much for coming out. One more time for all the storytellers this evening. All of the people that bring Fashion Week to you for the last 25 years and will continue for 75 more. Our founder, Jay Calderon, yourselves for coming out. Thank you so much. There's so much more of Fashion Week. Go to fashion shows, go to events, go online, bostonfashionweek.com, and find more of this because it's out there. Thank you so much for coming out tonight.